Number 9. A Ferrari F40. At the height of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, car fanatic Scott Chivers heard about an abandoned Ferrari F40 that once belonged to Saddam Hussein's son Uday. For years, Chivers and many others believed that Uday's treasured car collection had been destroyed after he was killed in a shootout with American soldiers during the Iraq War. He was thrilled to learn that it had sat, neglected and covered in dirt, outside a service station in Iraq. Chivers, who goes by the nickname Rada Rosa, wanted to try getting the car out of the country and back to the US. But it was strictly out of the question, given the dangers associated with the retrieval of its kind, and because it had turned out that the car was in someone's possession already. It was in rough shape, and the current owner had set a high asking price at around $1.3 million. Shortly after the story about the car circulated, Saddam Hussein's sister posted a tweet stating that anyone who tried to remove the car from Iraq would face consequences. The car's current whereabouts and condition are unknown. Number 8. Pontiac Trans Am. The Pontiac Trans Am was one of the more high-end models from the Firebird lineage, not reserved for the elite social classes. One of the Trans Am's best years came during its 10th anniversary in 1979, when sales increased considerably from the year before. It was also ranked by Car and Driver magazine as the best handling car of the year. Out of the nearly 211,500 Firebirds that were sold in 1979, around 117,000 of them were Trans Ams. Given these high production numbers, it's not unusual for someone to come across an abandoned Firebird or Trans Am from time to time. They're not unusually remarkable in shape, but many are restorable, and every now and then a surprisingly intact unit hits the auction market. Unfortunately, the past details of many of these cars are vague, and it's a rare treat when someone can offer a backstory on a Trans Am. In 2022, YouTuber Devin Lewis posted a video discussing his recent experience retrieving a pair of Trans Ams from a bar in South Carolina, where they had sat for some more than 30 years without any maintenance. Lewis accompanied a crew from a shop that specializes in restoring Pontiacs. They rescued the cars with plans to restore them and got to work. In 2021, Navy veteran and Firebird fanatic Bernie Larson decided to finally part ways with his beloved collection of 20 Firebirds and Trans Ams, which he had amassed over several decades. The vehicle's conditions appeared to vary, but none seemed heavily damaged, owing to the protection of the Kansas garage they were parked in. While auction prices can range from a few hundred to tens of thousands, it's probably safe to assume that Larson made a pretty penny off the sale of his cars. Number 7. Lamborghini Miura. Nicknamed the Greek Elvis, Stamatis Kokotas, a famous folk singer who topped the charts in his country many times throughout his career. During the early 1970s, Greek shipping millionaire Aristotle Onassis was so impressed by the legendary crooner that he gifted Kokotas a metallic brown 1969 Lamborghini Miura as a show of appreciation for his vocal talent. The luxury sports car came with advanced features for its time, including electric windows and air conditioning. It also had a top-notch engine which unfortunately died for some reasons in 1972. Kokotas hadn't owned the high-end vehicle for very long, but the thrill of it had apparently already worn off. He never bothered to get it fixed, and for the next 42 years, it had sat forgotten in the parking lot of an Athens hotel. The Miura finally went up for auction in 2012. Bids reached more than $483,210, but it wasn't enough to meet the Lambo's reserve price. While automotive enthusiasts around the world hope to someday see it restored, it's unclear whether anyone ever took possession of it or if there are any current plans for the car. Number 6. Vintage Supercar Graveyard. Michael Froelich specializes in restoring classic cars, yet he prefers to keep his own collection exposed to the elements for extended periods of time. His property in Mettmann, Germany, is filled with around 50 decaying automobiles. His collection includes Jaguars, Rolls-Royces, Porsches, Mercedes-Benzes, and BMWs. Froelich traveled the world to retrieve the cars after researching each one extensively and deciding it was an appropriate addition to his growing collection of decaying relics. He considers his property, known as Auto Sculpturen to be a museum of sorts. Every single car is from the year 1950, the year Froelich was born, and he parked them on the property in 2000 on his 50th birthday. In a 2009 interview with the German magazine Der Spiegel, he described the cars as his brothers. He also said that almost all the vehicles were roadworthy when he placed them in his yard and left them at the mercy of nature. Needless to say, it just takes one glance to realize today that almost none of the cars look drivable. As they say, one person's trash is another person's treasure. In the eyes of the eccentric collector, his property full of cars is a work of art rather than a waste of restorable vintage cars. And based on the number of curious visitors the site attracts, it appears though Froelich isn't the only person who feels this way. If you could own any car in the world, what would it be? Tell us in the comments below and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 5. Maybach 57. In 2012, auto enthusiasts learned about the soul-crushing story of a Maybach 57 that had been sitting in a parking garage in Cannes, France for 4 years. After being left unattended for so long, the $350,000 car was covered in a layer of dust, which a passerby had scribbled rude messages into with their finger, and its hood ornament was gone. YouTuber Marcinetto posted the original footage of the vehicle, which quickly went viral. He said that he found it along the French coast and speculated that the car's suspension was broken, based on its unusually low sitting appearance. Nobody seems to know who the car belongs to, or how or why it was parked and forgotten about one day. Powered by a 12-cylinder Mercedes motor, the Maybach 57 was designed for speed, power, and luxury. Production began in 2000 as a way for the company to reintroduce itself to the market after a years-long hiatus. The 57 was designed to compete directly with the RollsRoyce Phantom, but it failed to achieve its goal, and the manufacture of all Maybach models ended in 2012. Despite its shortcomings, the 57 is an impressive car in its own right, and almost everyone would agree that it certainly doesn't belong in a garage for years as it falls further into a state of neglect. Number 4. A Jaguar XJ220. From 1992 to 1994, Jaguar produced a rare and iconic supercar called the XJ220. With a recorded top speed of 212.3 miles per hour, it was the fastest production car from 1992 to 1993. Only 281 XJ220s were ever made. One of them wound up deserted in a Qatari desert with just 559 miles on the odometer. It's unclear why the car was abandoned. The vehicle was last seen in Beirut, Lebanon 6 years after its owner bought it in Dubai. For reasons that remain a mystery to this day, it ended up in an outdoor lot where it languished, covered in dust. The vehicle's current whereabouts and condition are unknown, but judging by the shape it was in when it last appeared in the media, it looked like it had already lost considerable value. It's definitely not worth nearly as much as it would be if it had been taken care of, especially if it sat for even longer after the media last reported on it. Number 3. The unluckiest Rolls-Royce ever. Actress Lena Maria Paul has long been known for her affinity for nice vehicles. After becoming rich and famous, the celebrity filled her driveway in South Delhi, India with at least 9 cars, including a Rolls-Royce Phantom, a Nissan GT-R, a Hummer H2, an Aston Martin Vantage V8, a Toyota Land Cruiser, a Range Rover, a BMW, a Mitsubishi Lancer, and an Audi A4. But her life of luxury was interrupted in 2013 when she and her boyfriend, Sukash Chandrasekhar, were accused of scamming a bank out of a 7-figure sum. 2 years later, while the case was still working its way through the court, the vehicles were seized and put into an impound lot. When authorities showed up at Lena's house, she was uncooperative, and they reportedly ended up having to break the windows of some of the cars in order to get inside and get them started. As the vehicles sat in the police lot, unmaintained and at the mercy of nature and deviants, they began to sustain visible damage. Auto enthusiasts were devastated to see photos of the cars, especially the Rolls-Royce Phantom, which had shattered windows, a missing front bumper, was noticeably dirty, and appeared to be possibly vandalized. It was suspected that the vehicles would be auctioned off, and that they would bring in just a portion of the previous value due to their damaged and neglected state. Before Lena bought the Phantom, it had already had a reputation for being the unluckiest Rolls-Royce ever. It took quite the beating while being used by its previous owner for a store promotion, and had provided free rides to commoners, which is perhaps more offensive in India than it is in some other places. Under Lena's ownership, it was used in a music video which featured people jumping and dancing on the car. More recently, in 2021, Lena was charged in yet another major fraud case. It's probably safe to assume that whatever happens to the car, it won't end up back in her possession. Number 2. A Ferrari Enzo. Named after Ferrari's founder, the Enzo was produced between 2002 and 2004. Equipped with a powerful V12 engine, it was one of the top 10 fastest cars ever produced during its time. Only 399 of the rare mid-engine sports car were ever made. It came at a steep price, often exceeding more than $1 million, and with ultra-rare versions selling for much higher. And buying an Enzo wasn't a matter of just coming up with the money. Ownership initially came by invitation, with Ferrari's existing valued customers getting first dibs. All the cars were sold before production even began. Given the prestige and extravagance of the car, it's hard to believe that someone would ever treat it with any sort of carelessness or disrespect. But it happened in 2010, when a British driver abandoned his red Enzo in Dubai as a suspected way to avoid dealing with traffic tickets. As irresponsible as that sounds, the man may have had a valid reason for fleeing. At the time, being in debt was criminalized by the United Arab Emirates and could come with shockingly harsh consequences. Instead of taking their chances, many luxury car owners ditched their rides to avoid jail, especially expats who left the country with no plans to return. The deserted Enzo was auctioned off in 2012, after it had sat for nearly 2 years. Authorities predicted that it would be the country's most expensive police sale in history. It was sold along with 23 other abandoned supercars, but the Enzo was the highlight of the event. The super strict laws that scared so many drivers away had eased up in recent years. Offending motorists and car owners now had more options for avoiding jail and settling their late car notes and traffic fines. It's unclear whether those in power enacted the change with an understanding mindset, or if they took the measure because they were struggling to manage the overwhelming number of ditched vehicles that were appearing. And at number 1, an Acura Honda NSX. The Acura NSX, known outside of the US as the Honda NSX, was produced between 1990 and 2005 and was revived from 2016 to 2022. It was the world's first mass-produced car with an entirely aluminum body, and it was also famous for being the first so-called everyday supercar. The NSX had a loyal following since it first rolled off the production line more than 30 years ago, and it's gotten even more popular since. Its value has also increased in recent years, making it appealing to both serious collectors and average drivers. Which is why it was a bit strange when an NSX was found discarded in a Russian forest near St. Petersburg in 2017. According to a Reddit thread, the abandoned silver supercar was missing its engine, and based on the accumulation of forest debris on the car that could be seen in the photo that circulated online, it looked like the vehicle had been sitting there for quite some time. Locals reportedly discovered the abandoned NSX while out picking wild mushrooms. Rumors claim that the car's previous owner had tried to sell it 8 years ago, but it's unclear why they decided to dump it in the woods. Thanks for watching. Which of these amazing abandoned cars would you like to see in person? Tell us in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.